In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Tonight we have Tamer, who is an OG in the Mississauga community. I'm not going to tell you what Tamer does or who Tamer is. He'll give a bit of about himself in a bit. But the topic.
I'm sorry, what's an OG?
Oh, original gangster.
Original, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah. Topic tonight: there is no finish line. Christian
Success in the Christian perspective.
Success in the Christian perspective. So I'm going to pass it on to Tamer, and Tamer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. OG, yeah, my parents were one of the original families of the church. So many years ago, they started this church when it was a basement, in someone's basement many years ago. So that's, I guess, true. A little bit about myself. I started off as a teacher. I'm actually a principal of a high school in Tilbourne. I started off as a science teacher, taught chemistry, made my way through, and now I'm a principal in Brampton at David Suzuki Secondary School. Edge, one of my favorite groups. I haven't been here for a long time. That's whose fault, I don't know. But I love this group. They're such a good group. But I think it's been a year since I've been here, at least. So do a better job.
We'll make sure we get you more.
Yes, please. I love it. I serve in chapel, which is beside St. Mina's Church. St. Maximus St. Demetrios Chapel is where I actually serve. And I teach grade 2 Sunday school there. It's a great group of kids. But enough about that. Today we have a topic. I asked for a number of different topics, and I got a bunch, and the one I chose was success in the Christian perspective. So we'll get started.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? There is no finish line. That's the actual title of the talk today. This is one of my favorite posters ever. My old school, which is an older school, they had a poster in their weight room. This one. There's No Finish Line was a Nike campaign that started 30 years ago. And this was one of the original posters. I like it for many reasons. First of all, it actually depicts women doing proper weight training. I enjoy exercise. I think exercise is very important. Not enough women do exercise. It's known that 3%, this is totally off topic, but I'm just going to tell you, 3% of girls do the proper amount of physical activity per week. 3%. And the number one indicator of a girl being properly physically fit is if her mother's properly physically fit. Number one indicator, right? Wow. So, number one. So if your mother exercises, there's a good chance you'll exercise, right? So part of this campaign was the idea that women need to exercise. Off topic, I have to give it, it's important. But the idea of there's no finish line is so important in all facets of our life. I love the idea that there isn't a finish line. I do exercise, I do it 6 times a week, I run, and the idea that I will never ever reach my goal is kind of important. There will never be a time where I'm done and I've reached where I want to be. Whenever I set a goal and hit that goal, I have to set another goal and keep going. The same is true for every part of our life, right? And that's why it's the idea of there's no finish line, because you take that idea and we will never reach the finish line, right? We always want to strive to improve in all parts of our life, all right? We'll start with this. That's my first car. This is a picture everyone's similar to. It's not I found it online. Mercury Topaz. No power steering, no power windows, no air conditioning, right? Great little car, to be where I needed to be, right? That was my car, it was fine. Great little car, all right? But of course, you get older, you gain more stuff, right? And things change. And you're like, you know what? I need something a little bit better. Enough with that one. I need air conditioning, I need power windows, I need power brakes, right? It was good. We're good, right? It's a great car. But of course, there's always better, right? So you can move up a little bit, right? And the world says, okay, we're good now, right? Are we good now? What does the world say?
No.
No.
Oh, come on, there's stuff in between. You can buy a Maserati.
You could buy it. We're only on half an hour, right? I cut it down a lot. Right? Are we done?
No.
Of course not.
Is that the same car?
This is a Lamborghini. It's about double the price of the one before. All right, I'm a car guy, but sort of. But anyway, now we're done.
No.
No.
Of course not.
The Bugatti, wow.
I think this is worth $2 million. I think.
Yeah, the maintenance on that is 400,000 a year alone.
You know.
The maintenance of it.
Now we're done.
No.
No.
You could buy a jet. Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Now we're done.
No.
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 You buy a bigger boat. Right? And these are in the range of $25 million, just so we're clear where we are. Now we're done.
Plane.
Just pocket change, you know.
There you go. Matching plane.
Yeah.
You have to get a matching plane for your car.
Yeah.
This is actually a video game, Grand Theft Auto. Go play it. Right? Just, whatever. Now we're done. Of course, there's houses. And when you buy a house, of course, there's bigger houses. Of course, when you buy bigger houses,
Castle.
there's bigger houses. Anyone know what that is? Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
Downton Abbey. If you haven't seen Downton Abbey, it's one of the best shows ever created. Amazing show on Netflix. It's on Netflix still?
I think it took it down.
It was a fantastic show.
Yeah, you know,
Anyways, Downton Abbey was known to be the largest single-family dwelling in the world for many, many years. It was it's a castle in Britain that was owned by a certain family, and now it's been bought out by. They do weddings in there now. But anyway, there's a whole mini-series based on this house. Anyway, we're talking about there's no finish line, right? The world tells us this is what we got to do, right? And so no matter what you get, the world tells us you need more. We are never satisfied where we are, because success in our world is what we achieve, what we own, the stuff we have, right? I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. So I should be sitting down talking to myself about this, just so that we're clear, all right? But of course, we're not talking about worldly success. What are we talking about? We're talking about success in the Christian perspective, right? And the problem is, the world doesn't talk about Christian success. The world talks about earthly success. The world pushes us to get as much stuff as we can, right? You need the bigger car, the bigger house, the more stuff, right? And it really pushes this idea of us needing more and wanting more. We actually live in a society, North America as a society breeds waste. And it breeds the accumulation of stuff. All right? A study was done, I want to say 10 years ago now. How much stuff that you buy today do you have 6 months from now? What percentage of stuff? Think of everything you buy. What percentage of stuff that you buy today do you still have in 6 months?
30.
On a North American average.
30.
What percentage? 30% of the stuff you buy today, you still have in 6 months. 30%. Who thinks it's higher or lower?
Still have or you still use?
You still have. Or that you haven't. Good question.
Yeah, where does it go in 6 months?
That's a question. Where does it go? What it said was stuff that you still have. This is a North American average. How much stuff? And this is everything that you purchase: clothing, cars, houses. I'm not sure if food is in that. I don't think it is. It's stuff. Any idea?
I don't know.
North American average?
40-60%.
1%.
What?
Wow.
North American average, 1% of the stuff we purchase, we still have in 6 months. We live in a world where we are to waste and to throw out and to buy more. That's a North American standard. Right? North America also has a standard, just so we're clear. The North Americans, on average, the average income of a North American is 100 times the global average. The amount of money that an average North American makes is 100 times that of the world. All right? We as a society are affluent. Right? And I may myself not be very rich as an individual, but in this society, we are an affluent society. And the world that we live in tells us it is important to have stuff. And it's important to have lots of stuff. But of course, we're talking about success in the Christian perspective. And we'll share a few things. Luke 12. One's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. Jesus says this. This is Jesus himself talking. Right? And he's talking, any idea what the story is? There's a very interesting parable after he says this one line. It starts with a guy coming to Jesus and saying, Lord, tell my brother to give me the money he owes me. That's how the story starts. And Jesus says, why? Why is it important that you have the money from your brother? Because the stuff that you own doesn't matter. All right? And then he shares one of my favorite stories. My favorite stories. This one. This is Luke chapter 12. So same chapter. I'll read it for you. The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do since I have no room to store my crops? So he's rich. He has more than he knows what to do with. So he said, I know. I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater ones. There I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. Does that sound familiar? What is the North American goal? Our goal in North America, we are told we have to gain
More than
so that we can eat and drink and be merry. We have to accumulate stuff so we can be okay. But God said to him, fool! I love it. Fool! This night your soul will be required of you. Right? There's not many times in the Bible where God calls people fools. Right? Success in the Christian perspective. Right? It's none of this. Right? But we are told that we need stuff. And stuff's okay. But we're told that we need it. We're also, and now this isn't just, I'm sorry to say, this isn't just a North American thing. Right? Our culture tells us that stuff is important. Our culture tells us that we have to strive in academics, we have to do very well in school, get a very good paying job, and become affluent. Our Egyptian, not our Coptic culture, very, very different. Coptic is different. The Egyptian culture, our culture is all about success in our jobs, success in what we can accumulate. Am I wrong? Right? You can take the idea of North American / Egyptian Arabic culture and put that against the church fathers. All the heroes of the church. The church fathers and the saints, they were all either rich and gave it away, or were never rich. Never had anything. Yet were they successful in the Christian perspective? Were they? Absolutely. Saint Mina. No one knew who he was until the day he died. He came out of the desert to die. And then all these miracles started happening, and then he became known. But for the rest of his life, he was poor. No one knew him. And look how big he is in our church. Let me check my notes. Hold on a second. I have to wear glasses. What is the problem with this? What is the problem with being wealthy? What's the problem with us accumulating things? Why is it a problem? Why is it a problem to accumulate or to work so hard to get stuff? I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying why could it become a problem? I have lots of stuff. I have lots of stuff. Again, talking to myself. But why is it a problem to start accumulating and caring so much about the things I have? Why is it a problem?
You'll never be satisfied.
Pardon?
You'll never be satisfied.
One thing is not to be satisfied.
Care
What
more.
else?
Because you care more about the treasure on earth rather than the treasure in the kingdom of heaven, which is salvation.
This starts becoming your Yes. What else?
I think it's because there's other people who don't have. Like, I think what the point is, I think that this person has more than he'll ever need.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And there's other people who are at the same time don't have anything. So I think it's he's gotten to a point like he doesn't need all of this stuff. Like it's just
Yes,
and
yeah.
other people are suffering
Yeah.
because of it.
At no point is any giving here. Yes, absolutely. So there's the idea of not giving. What else? Why else is it? Why else is it an issue when we start accumulating these things and start, making this important? Why else?
Never use it.
Never use it. It becomes wasteful.
It's also dependency on those things because I see he's kind of fully dependent. His trust is in those things.
His trust is in those things. That's the kicker. All of a sudden, I'm no longer trusting in God. Right? How many of us are trusting in our bank account? How important is that over Jesus? Because if it drops below a certain amount, it's going to happen. Right? How many of us start losing track of Jesus Christ because we're so busy keeping track of all the other stuff? Right? That's the problem with us as a North American / wealthy culture. Right? Things start getting in the way of Christ. Okay, we're gonna take it up a notch though. So this is pretty bad. There's something way worse. Okay, everybody is. And this is not a good. I like having easy, fun topics. This is not a fun topic, guys. I'm sorry.
We'll have you back for a fun time.
Yeah, have back for a fun topic. This isn't one of them. We live in a fairly. If you live in North America, if you live in the GTA, if you have a fridge with food in it, you are better off than most of the planet. All right? Can you think of another city or a city in the Bible that was made reference to because it was known to be a rich city? Can you think of one? There's one city that's made. I think this is the only. There's one city that's made reference to in the Bible that is known to be a rich city. Which is an L.
Lebanon?
City. Laodicea. Laodicea is in Turkey. Laodicea is in Turkey. Laodicea is made reference to in the book of Revelation.
I believe.
Laodicea was made reference to in the book of Revelation. It's a city in Turkey. It's known to be a crossroads. So many people traveled through Laodicea to get where they needed to go. It was known to be a place with lots of banking and commerce. It was also known to have a very successful clothing, like textile industry there. They had bred a certain type of black sheep. I don't know the story. They made very, very good wool, made very expensive clothing, and the city was known to be super wealthy. Kind of like the GTA. All right? And maybe not everyone in the city was wealthy, but the city as a whole was wealthy. Right? Kind of like where we live. Kind of like our North American culture. Right? You can take the city of Laodicea. They had their version of the Rogers Center. Right? They had aquifers, they had water, they had all the amenities. They were known to be one of the richest cities in the world at the time. And they're brought up in Revelations. Okay, ready? This is kind of us, right? We've agreed? It's sort of like us?
Yeah.
Sure.
What does Revelation say about Laodicea?
Yeah.
And to the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things says the Amen, the faithful and the true witness, the beginning and of the creation of God. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot.
Okay, never mind. Stop.
Yeah. I could wish you were cold or hot, so then because you are lukewarm
Let's switch it out.
and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth. Because you say I am rich, have become wealthy, and have need of nothing, and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Sometimes there's parts of the Bible that you read and you have to kind of make reference and try to figure out what it's saying, right? We have to try to interpret what's being said. Understand there is absolutely no interpretation here. This is exactly what it means. Success in the Christian perspective is not this, guys, right? What do I have to say? Are we happy? Are we having fun? The idea of lukewarmness. When you spend so much time on trying to accumulate your own wealth, which is, again, is it fine to have stuff? Yes, it's fine to have stuff. Is it okay to have, all your things? That's fine. But the problem is we start to not need God, right? We start to be lukewarm because all of the other things in our life replace the fire we have for God, right? The fire for our car, the fire for our bank account, the fire for our house, the fire for the things around us, all replace the fire for God. And we become lukewarm, right? I want to talk about, I found 4 things, there's many. These are 4 things that I found in my research, and there's so much more, but things that might indicate that you're lukewarm. All right? That I am lukewarm. Okay? Are you relying more on things in your life than you are on Jesus Christ? Right? And when we have stuff, we tend to rely on things. We tend to rely on ourselves. Right? If I'm in a part of the world where there's nothing, and I don't know where my next meal is, I'm praying to God for my next meal. And I'm counting on Jesus for my next meal. Hopefully. Right? Well, here's a little harder because I have a fridge full of food. Don't need God to eat. God took care of it. Right? So, are we in a situation where we are relying more on things in our life than we are on Christ? If we are, we're lukewarm. Maybe. Is your only source of spiritual nourishment church on Sunday? And the job Thursday. I'll throw that in there. Doesn't count. Right? Is that our only spiritual nourishment, or is there more? Are we praying? Are we doing Nekbeh every day, or just when we're at edge? Are we spending time in prayer with God? Are we spending time in communion with God? Are we doing quiet time? Are we doing service? Are we doing something? And we don't have to do service, right? We don't have to be serving as in the church standing in front of people. We can find other ways. But what are we doing for our spiritual nourishment? And Sunday is not enough. Please understand. Once a week for 2 hours or 3 hours is not enough. Are you in denial about your true state of your spiritual being? I'm okay. Right? Again, the other thing about living here is it's very easy to find people who are doing worse than we are. So I can easily, I'm all right compared to that guy. I'm okay. I'm okay compared to her. I'm fine. Right? Am I in denial about my true spiritual well-being? This is a tough one. Have you elevated certain church traditions to the level of Scripture? I fasted for Christmas. I'm good. I didn't, I had my fish. I didn't eat for 4 weeks. Saved. Is that enough? Right? Church traditions and rituals. We talked about there's no finish line, about exercising. They help us in our exercise. They make us stronger to be able to follow Christ. Right? They're not the be all and end all. Right? I can't check boxes and say, okay, went to church on Sunday, I fasted, I fasted for Easter, whatever. I checked boxes and I'm fine. Because who checked boxes and was fine? The Pharisees. The Pharisees. Father Anthony has a great sermon about how we as Copts are very similar to the scribes and Pharisees of the old day. He talks about it. Right? If we're just checking the boxes and saying, yeah, we're good. Right? It's not enough. Happy topic?
Great topic.
So, we're at the point now where I got to this point, and then I said, I'm like, they're going to hate me. What do we do?
So might as well keep going, right?
Yeah. Because now it's impossible. It's impossible. I was talking to myself when doing this. I'm done. I'm finished. It's impossible. But luckily, here we're going to turn on just a little bit. Okay? Luckily, our God is the God of the impossible. Thank God, our God is the God of the impossible. Right? He takes what's impossible and he makes it possible. There is no finish line. What am I doing? What am I doing to try to fight those four things? All right? So we can talk about, are you relying more on the things in your life than you are on Christ? What did I write down? I will find more ways to be nourished. I will find more ways. I'm going to actively seek out more ways to find nourishment. Knowing that there is no finish line. And knowing that I'm going to keep trying. Right? I will never reach where I need to be. But God's the God of the impossible. I'm going to actively find ways to be nourished. Sorry, that's the wrong one. That one. What was the first one? I will try. So yeah, I'll try to rely on Christ more. What did I write down? I'll try to stop worrying about things of this world. Right? There's the whole passage about, don't worry, you look at the birds of the sky, the lilies of the valley, they neither reap nor sow, yet God clothes them. Right? I want to try more and more not to worry and to put things on Christ. Christ, I commit today to you. Jesus, I commit my life to you. If I start worrying about something, instead of worrying, I'm going to pray to God, God, it's in your hands, you deal. And I want to actively try to do that more. All right? We talked about this one already. I mean, now about your true state. I am. Let's be clear. I am wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked in the eyes of Christ. I am. He's the God of the impossible. Right? That's what I bring to Christ. I know that I am not sufficient. And I bring that to Christ. I don't bring to Christ that I'm good enough. Right? I bring to Christ that I need Christ. And I need Him to carry me. We know that we are saved through the blood of Christ. We are not enough. We will not do enough. No matter what we do, it is not enough. It is only through the grace of God that we are saved. Right? But that doesn't mean we sit back and give up. Right? God wants to know that we are trying, that we are doing our part. Right? I liken the idea of an escalator that goes up to heaven, or a ladder that goes up to heaven, but that doesn't reach heaven. I'm going to climb as high as I can, knowing I'm not going to make it, knowing that God's going to reach down and pull me the rest of the way. Right? But I got to do my bit. I got to do a little bit of climbing. I can't just sit back and be comfortable. How far back did we go? Hold on a second. Where are we? There we go. I can't sit back and eat and drink and be merry and expect God to be okay with that. Right? He's the God of the impossible. We got to do our part. Very, very, very important. Do the rituals. Fast. Pray. Follow tradition. Read your Agpeya. They are super, super important. Do them. Because they will help in your spiritual uplifting. They help. Right? But don't do them. If I'm fasting to check a box, then don't fast. Fast. But don't think of doing anything. Right? We don't just fast to check a box. Not the purpose. Right? Find ways to fast to make it meaningful. Right? Find ways where it's not just checking a box. Right? Do the rituals, but make them mean something. Right? Hunger for God. Thirst for God. Right? Any questions so far? I'm going to finish soon. No, that's all right. And there's a few more things, but go ahead. Yes.
The verse in Luke when it says don't be merry. what if you're doing all of these and you're being married? Or what if you're doing one or two of these and you're being married? Is that still okay, or is that not okay?
See, I believe that God is a fair God. I wish Abuna was here to help me with this, but the church fathers, when you hear about people who were in the desert for 30 years, right? And they were tempted and all this stuff was happening. I can't imagine God was allowing them to suffer for 30 years. I think that God is a fair God. And we can be married when we're doing these things, right? We might not be, but we can be. Like, is that what you're asking? Like, if you're having a good time, don't feel bad about it, right? God doesn't tell us to be miserable, but God tells us that we need to work on our Christian life and work on success as a Christian. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
I think just as long as your focus is on this, and your focus has to be God first, and then everything else afterwards. So it doesn't mean your success won't come in the material world, but it just means that God is first, and then all the other stuff comes second. So it doesn't mean that you won't get success. So some of the most successful people I knew were the best servants.
And
And they didn't show it really
please understand, success is okay, right? Owning stuff is okay, but we have to be very, very careful, because when we own, and again, I'm speaking to myself, I start relying on my stuff, right? And I start relying on the things around me, and I start, look at me, I'm so successful, I did this myself, look at how good I am, right? And you take it away from God, right? Is my success because of me, or is my success because of God? Did God give me the ability to make it to where I am? Everything that I do, am I putting it back on God? Or am I relying on myself? Right? I got here. Right? I worked hard. I did my thing. That's why I'm where I am. Or am I thanking God every day because I'm not worthy? Right? That's the idea. When I get to where I am, it's through the grace of God. Everything is filtered through the grace of God. Right? Make sense? One last thing. And this is a big one. First fruits. Right? We talked about all these. Are you relying more on things? Spiritual nourishment, the status for well-being, true traditions. We can take all of this and kind of condense it all into the idea of, am I giving God the best of myself? Am I giving God first? Am I giving God, then everything else? Am I giving God, then am I giving to my family? Am I giving God, then am I giving to everything else that I'm doing? Right? And we've talked, since we were in kindergarten, the question of, is the last thing I do pray when I'm half asleep, or do I do it during the day when I'm actually still awake and can actually pray properly? Right? Or is the last thing I do, and I stand up and I say Our Father, and I fall asleep with it, not even knowing what I just said? Right? Am I giving my best to God? Francis Chan, you know Francis Chan? Heard of him? Speaker. He talks a lot about salvation, and his talks are like, he did a similar talk about lukewarmness, and he actually accused half the population. He said, half of you are going to hell, is what he said. He's fantastic, but he's tough. There's a video that he does that's really good, and I want you to watch it. All right? This is a part of it, if I can find it. Wait, hold on a second. Make sure there's volume. Give me 1 sec. The volume should work, right?
Yeah, it was connected to the HDMI. It should be fine.
Okay, hold on. Current. Let's see if it works.
Because I realized, see, all my life, I was brought up in a youth group. I got saved in high school. And I remember my youth pastor used to just beg us to show up to youth group. And then when it came time for singing, he would beg us, please, someone sing. Come on, louder. How about if we go boys against girls? Let's make it a competition. Who can sing louder? And when we finally sang, he'd be like, good, good, good. And so I had this impression that God was in heaven going, come on, please, just give me anything. I'll take anything. Because that was kind of what I saw. And then you read in Scripture, and Jesus, God himself here is going, that's all you got for me? Would you do that for your governor? Would you even give that to another human being? And you're going to give me that? And it was at that day, I was like, God, I don't want to give you my leftovers. Whatever's best, I want to give you the best, because so often with our time, our finances, I brought some chicken with me, okay? But this is what we do, okay? Whether it's our time or our finances, let's say this is our finances. We go, oh, Lord, thank you, thank you. And what do? We go, well, I got to pay my mortgage. And we think, oh, I got my car payment. I got to pay for that. I start thinking, got to eat. Got to have life insurance. I got to have retirement. Cable TV. Go to the movies. Eat out. Go on and on and on with everything you want to do. But you keep taking bites, whatever you want first. And then once you're all done, you're going, here, Lord. And now that's crazy. But the crazier part is many people actually believe that God's in heaven going, oh, cool, good, there's still some meat on that. That's what the priests in Malachi's day thought. Let's just spend on ourselves.
So, he's awesome, by the way. He's very good. He has lots of things like that. But this idea, right, of giving your best to God, it's hard to do in this society because of everything that he said, right? And this idea of lukewarmness that we talked about, right? That's what lukewarmness is. It's the idea that I'm going to give myself, and then whatever's left, again, right before I go to sleep, oh, I really should pray, right? And then all these things that we give to God when it's not really our best, right? Do we give our best time to God, right? Do we give, our first to God, right? Or do we wait, right? And that's the idea of lukewarmness, right? And again, there's no finish line. You will never be perfect. I will never be perfect. But my idea, my thought is, again, that God is the God of the impossible. If I at least try, knowing that we are all held accountable, and we're all held accountable to a different level, right? It's not one solid line that everyone has to reach, right? Everyone is accountable on their own. Everyone's held to their own standard. What am I doing in my life, knowing that I'm going to continuously try to improve, right? If I spend the same amount of energy on my spiritual life as I did on my personal life, on my academic life, on my work life, right? That amount of energy, right? If I spent that amount of energy knowing that, okay, I'm going to work on this, and when I reach a certain goal, I'm going to create a new goal, because there's no finish line. I'm going to continue, right? Knowing that I have to keep trying, because you fool, you can go outside today, get hit by a car, and be done, right? Your spirit could be asked of you today, right? My spirit could be asked of you today, right? Am I doing my best? And does God know that I'm at least trying, right? And throw that in there, right? If you give God your best, the rest will take care of themselves, right? And that's the idea of success in the spiritual. And the idea is, the success is that there is no success. It's that I'm going to keep going, right? You will never reach. The day you wake up and say, I'm good, is the day you go see your priest because you have a problem, right? We're always striving, right? And we all know what that means. We all have an idea in ourselves of what we need to improve upon. Just do it. Start today, right? What do we got to do to improve our success in a Christian perspective? What do I have to do? I know what I got to do. What do you have to do? But that's the message, right? That's the story. And again, I'm sorry, it's not an easy one.
No, it's perfect.
Not an easy one, but it's a message, right? And that's success in a Christian perspective. Because if we are trying, I'm pretty sure that day when we're standing up there in front of God and He's taking judgment, He'll say, "Hey, you tried." And I think that's what He wants. Any questions?
I've got a, it's not necessarily a question to be answered, it could be more rhetorical. And I'm not using this as an excuse, but are we at a disadvantage? So you say that, the society that we live in and the culture that we live in, this has become the norm to succeed and to be better and to you're never satisfied with what you have. Um, I think to my family in Egypt, my cousins and my aunts and uncles and all that, and every time you go there, they just have more of a zeal because I'm not going to say because of the way they've been brought up or because of the country that they live in, whatever it is, but you know, it's very different from us here.
Yes.
Um, does that make us at a disadvantage? Does that put us at a disadvantage? Again, I'm not saying it's an excuse because they obviously the reason that they are what they are is because of the effort that they put in. But truth be told, they're not living the same lifestyle that we're living here.
And the answer is absolutely right at disadvantage. Absolutely. We are absolutely at disadvantage, 100%.
Oh.
Us in North America are at disadvantage.
Well, we're also at an advantage
Why?
because we can worship freely and they can't.
Yeah, yes. I know that there are prayer meetings in Egypt and in in the very poor places in Africa where they pray for those in North America who haven't found Christ because we're too busy with our stuff. It is. It is a disadvantage. We are. It's tougher for us. Absolutely. Right? And yes, we can freely pray, but because we can freely pray, many of us choose not to.
So it's a choice.
It's always a choice.
That's right, but it's not. You choose to do that, just like this people in Egypt choose to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm
I don't know if it's a disadvantage or an
I think they're
advantage.
physically at a disadvantage over there.
Different
Or
jobs,
psychologically
right?
at a disadvantage.
I think that's too light. Like you're it's not true. Like, I don't see that that's being necessarily true. We're richer in North America than any other countries in the world.
Yeah.
Yet we
Absolutely.
give little to our churches than we've ever done.
But I think
So
we are richer.
Is that you're choosing to stay to
I think we are richer in the things, the quote unquote things in
But I'm
North
saying,
America.
but it's your choice to give.
Absolutely.
That amount you give. You choose to give the 5%, the 10%, or the 20%.
So King Saint Anthony said, Saint Anthony said, people of this, because Saint Anthony saw like way ahead of his time when he was in his prayers. He said the people of this time, they'll have a lot more temptation, a lot more things. So basically, the fight they fight in the world, like in some cases, in some ways, it's harder than the fight that some of the monks will fight because the monks are sitting away, they're hidden away from everything, and they don't have to worry about that stuff that we have to worry about in the real world. And in North America, I think in some ways you have a lot of exposure to a lot of things, maybe a lot more readily, a lot more easily available than maybe in Egypt. So in that sense.
There is stories about some of the desert fathers who were tormented for years by devils trying to tempt them and they didn't fall, but they were tormented. They still had their torments, right? We have torments as well that are different.
Yeah, and that's what Saint said. Because Saint said the people of this world here, like today, basically that's what they're saying. That we have so many different temptations that it'll be like a monk fighting all these temptations and a lot of things in seclusion almost.
Yeah, but this idea of choice, you're absolutely right. It is choice.
The Bible isn't different in Egypt than here.
It's not.
Yeah.
But then why is there more lukewarmness here?
Sorry?
Would you argue that there's just as much lukewarmness there?
There are people in Egypt that are lukewarm.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there
But
is.
of course there is, but I feel like there's more of a culture of acceptance of lukewarmness here.
So I think it's easier to see here because in Egypt there's like millions of people, millions of Coptic. Their population there is like 20 what? They say it's 10 million, but it's more like 20 million. So, and I think it's easier there. You don't necessarily see it because people that show up in the churches there, those are the people who are hot, not lukewarm or cold mostly, usually. So here, it's easier maybe to see or maybe it's easier to judge, even though I think they're basically the same.
John, you started. Go.
No. I'll give you a simple example. I just traveled to Edmonton recently. There's a real issue around this, of course, the economy around there, right?
Yeah.
One of the first things I saw when I was traveling is that how do you know there's a lot of poverty? So what people do when you're poor is you go to Walmart or something and you take the carts and you're walking around with carts all day, and because they're trying to collect food and clothes. So one of the ways they tell that there's a lot of poverty is that there's more carts literally littering the streets.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yes.
Go drive if you really want to do it. Go right now to any city in Alberta, and you'll see start
Very cool,
seeing it.
yes.
Are they are what? But yet the rest of the country's rich. Now I know there's government politics. I get it, but we have an obligation or responsibility to do something about it as Christians. I would ask myself, are we actually doing anything about it or not? I don't know. I don't have an answer, but we have things here that we can do to make a difference. I've heard this from a priest one time. Why did cops move did we all just move because we wanted to immigrate so we can not, get rid of the persecution ourselves and our parents just came for that reason? Do you think God brought us all the way here just for that reason? I'm sure we have a responsibility to preach the word of God by coming all the way here. I think we dull things down a little bit and we're not seeing the big picture. The big picture is, no, we have the same advantage as everybody else, and we actually have a better advantage that we're here. There are people that are poor. There are people that are struggling. There are people that are not living well off, like I am. And I will admit that. Am I taking my money and just vacationing all the time, or am I taking my money and doing something about it? Again, I hope people are not taking that as judgmental. I'm just saying, yeah, there are differences, but there's a lot more similarities in the fact that we have God, just like the God is in Egypt is the God is the same here. God in South America is still the God the same, in China. So I don't know.
I just want to say that for all the years I've known him, that is the most I've ever heard him talk. It's just an observation. That is the most conversation I've heard him
about. Forever, just so you know.
Good job, man. More of that, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I do agree with that, but also I feel that we're more preoccupied with a lot of things here, because I've lived in both places. Like I've lived in Egypt and I've lived here, and I feel like in Egypt sometimes they have, like here you have to have, like you said, your mortgage, your taxes, you got to finish this, you got to do this. There's more structure. You have to and you have to do it better than like, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of this, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm not saying that we get preoccupied with all of this, but they don't have all this in a way. And like I said, I'm agreeing with you, but they don't have all this, so they don't get preoccupied with all of that stuff, and they kind of concentrate more. Like some people, I'm saying that when you have less and when you have more time, sometimes, and maybe you do have more time and then you don't do anything with it, but I feel like that's might be the difference, but I still agree that we shouldn't be doing that.
And just to that point, I'm just not sure how they don't have the exact same pressures financially.
They do.
It's probably worse.
A
On,
lot.
It's
on
worse.
No, but I
average,
mean,
it's
You
worse,
left Egypt,
probably.
you were a kid.
Hey,
You
hold
know.
on.
You were a kid, you were not working. You didn't have
But
responsibility.
I'm not talking about, like, I'm talking about different class. I'm not talking about
Well,
everyone.
okay, so keep in mind that the people here are most likely from a more secluded group than the rest of the bigger population in Egypt. You know what I mean? Like we were the privileged ones, obviously, back home. That's
Yes.
why we're
No,
here.
I agree. I agree with
So
you.
yeah, you're talking about مثلا 10%. You're ignoring the 90% who have to struggle through the.
No, I get what Sarah's saying. She's kind of in the same, like the question that I was asking. I'm not saying that we're at a disadvantage or an advantage. There's pros and cons to everything. But I think with Sarah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when she's saying like mortgages and taxes and etc., I think because it consumes so much of our lifestyle here,
Of our thinking.
or our thinking, it consumes our lifestyle and our thinking that it becomes a priority. When I think of a mortgage in Egypt, like my cousin's mortgage is 9 Guinea a month. So like that to me, yeah, it's 9.
I want to go there and live. Please.
Yeah. So, but I'm
Where?
saying, but that again, that's an exception. But I'm just saying.
From his
Yeah.
Seriously,
For sure. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, life here is go go go. Life in Egypt is just go, right? It's the. This is what I've experienced, and maybe different people have experienced this. Every time I go to Egypt, I love the fact that I can go visit this church and this monastery. And I'm at a high, right? I come here and I don't have that high. And Tamer was talking about number 2. Is your only source of spiritual nourishment church on Sunday? No, I've got my other activities that I do throughout the week, But even then, sometimes I question myself. I'm like, am I doing it because I'm just checking the boxes, or am I doing it because I've got free time? Am I doing it because I want to do it? I feel that the 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 culture too. I mean, the Coptic culture here. Let's be completely honest. It's a very competitive culture, right? I see this guy doing, he's this amount of age and he's got X amount of money and he's got this kind of car. It can create this animosity. It can create this zeal. It can create this jealousy. It can create this negative stigma. So that because of that, you automatically resort to number one. We're like, okay, I need to get things. I need to get things. I need to get things. That's why I'm saying a disadvantage. There are disadvantages and advantages. I'm sure people in Egypt, when they look at here and they look at us and they say, yeah, these guys are advantaged. They've got an advantage where they're living in a free country. They've got, this mortgage. They've got this money, etc. But they're also they've got disadvantages in whatever it is. It's all about perspective, right? My advantage and my disadvantage is very different from Tamer's advantage and disadvantage to, someone else.
It's also known that oppression breeds religion. The more we are oppressed, the more our faith becomes stronger.
And because we have free will here, we kind of take it to we kind of take it for granted. We're like, yeah, if I want to go to church on Sunday, I'll go to church on Sunday. If I want to go to church on Monday, I'll go to church on Monday. Versus in Egypt, when there's let's just put it this way: when the church gets bombed in Egypt, everyone and their mother goes there. If a church gets bombed in Egypt, sorry, if a church gets bombed in Canada, I'm sure a lot of us would be more scared than anything. That's what I'm saying when it comes to disadvantage, is that we have this we're so guarded and we've got this security bubble around us that because of that these four things apply to us a lot easier than people back home.
No, I was actually about to touch same point of what you said. Uh, I think the nature of a human being is typically lazy, right? In the sense that if you have everything that you've got, why would I, stand up and pray, right? But if you're oppressed and you're facing a lot of tribulations, and I mean, when I say there's difference between the struggle to struggle, like here, there might be a little bit of financial struggles for some people in order to pay their mortgages, their cars, and whatnot. In Egypt, it's a struggle to survive, right? In terms of religion, for example, there's that religious discrimination. In terms of there's some people who might not even eat chicken except like say once every feast, right? So in Christmas they'll eat it once. So I think it's that idea of struggle that tends to push us to be a little bit more hot toward the church. So I lived in Egypt, for a lot, and I felt, because you feel like the need to go to the church. There's always struggles in your daily life, whether if it's at work because of your religion, whether because of the certain way you look, the certain things you do. I think it's that element of oppression. Whereas here, there's barely where you see anyone who is, for example, discriminated because of religion. There's laws to everything, and I feel because a lot of these things come into place, everyone thinks that, okay, well, if I need to go come to church, but there's nothing really that pushes you to go to church. Like it's not like a life or death, or if it's like in Egypt, I think it's a little different in that sense.
I completely forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'll pass.
I think the debate about how riches interact with how we focus on heaven happened a couple thousand years ago. Christ and his disciples had the exact same debate. Why is it that the rich can't get to heaven? And the disciples were as confused as we all are. Like, then who's going to get to heaven? The rich have all the advantage. Why can't they get to heaven? And Christ answered, it's the dependency on the riches. He never necessarily said it's the stuff. He said it's the dependency. I think perhaps the disadvantage that might exist here is not so much a disadvantage of we have stuff or we're not oppressed or whatever, but is that we have a very different perspective on life. We are taught to depend on ourselves. We are taught to depend on our accomplishments. Whereas people in Egypt, no matter whether they're oppressed, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, there's this sense of dependency on God. They live in a culture where, in general, God is the center of dependency. So doesn't, like, if you come from an affluent family, you have grown up with the understanding that your day to day still depends on God. So I think that's where the disadvantage comes in, and that's why perhaps sometimes we don't make those choices, because why God focus on that structure? Because I gotta accomplish these things in order to be successful, in order to survive. If I don't like plan for a mortgage, if I don't plan for taxes, if I don't plan for my job, hey, it's gonna be a disaster. I'm gonna be pushing carts around. That's just the truth of the matter. And I think we're taught that, and it's drilled into us. It's not drilled into us to depend on God or to trust in God, because that's seen as being dependent. It's seen as being lazy.
That's the complete opposite of what you said there,
What do
right?
you mean?
Because if you want a Christian success, you're not are you should not be dependent on the internet, right? If I want a true Christian success, is if I depend on God first, all these other things are going to be added to me. Right?
No, don't misunderstand. I can still have this stuff, but I can't be. Our problem often is that the more stuff we have, the more we tend to worry, and the more we tend to focus on ourselves, and oh, I'm not going to get it done, and there's so much worry when instead of putting it on God because of all this stuff. And the more complicated my life gets, the more worry I get because I take it away from God and put it on myself. That's the messaging.
And the rich man couldn't let go.
No.
The rich man is you couldn't let go.
Exactly, and can I let go of my stuff? I love my house. Do I want to? I don't want to give up my house. I love it. Right? I love going home to it every day. I don't want to give it up. I'm talking 100% honest about myself. I love my house. And I could probably sell my house for a good amount of money and make many people happy. I'm not going to. Am I going to hell? I don't know. God's got to be impossible, right? So I'm going to work on this business, right? Hoping that that's enough. And I think, again, we are rich. The rich guys, the rich go to heaven. Let's be clear.
Can go to heaven.
The rich can go to heaven. Let's just be clear here. But it's more difficult because of all the things that we put our trust in. I think we had one there first.
Oh, I was gonna really say it's not a matter about how rich you are or whatever. It's where like best analogy is it's like tofu. It's whatever's around it, it becomes you. You set all the flavors around it, and that's it. Honestly, it's great. If you cook the way, if you have to tofu properly, it tastes unreal. But anyways, but that's the same thing with us. We're like society. It's what's around us. So if you ever go down to Europe or whatever, they're not doing too badly off, but all they want to do is just want to have fun. They just make enough money just to have fun. And I've talked to so many people from Europe or from Australia or whatever, and they don't really care about the house, the car, their careers. They're like, I just made enough money, I'm just gonna go out and just like travel for 6 months and just call it a day, right? And that's the whole mindset. I think in Egypt the mindset is, oh, it's God's. Like when you talk about parents, like God's first and all that fun stuff. God bless your souls. But here in Canada, it's not. It's go to school, get an education, get a job, pay off student debt, or yeah, no, I don't do that stuff. And then like work your way up the corporate ladder, get a mortgage, all that stuff. It's just go, go, go. And if anyone knows me, I run on nothing but coffee and adrenaline, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But it's go, 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 and that's never gonna stop. And it's not about like what things you are. It's the society that we're around. If you go downtown, you go to Wall Street, like look at what's in finance. If anyone in finance, I don't think anyone's in finance. If you're in finance, if you're in Wall Street, if you're in Bay Street, if you don't believe me, go talk to them and see what go, go, go is at. And that's who we are, right?
I think the disadvantage we're talking about is creates an advantage, because at the end of the day you think of it, is that it? Is that it? Like, did I accomplish what I want to do? Is there a purpose of what I'm doing? And you find the more you accumulate things, the more you get empty. Because what's the point? Easy come, easy go. So you don't feel the struggle at the end. Talking about the people in Egypt, Christians or Coptics in Egypt brought up with the idea that you live around the church. You don't have a life outside, because there are a lot of people are not accepted in into the society outside, they don't they don't go for community service. They don't know anything about outside other than what they're been taught in church. So that's the difference between here and there. I lived in Egypt for a long time and I graduated and I worked for a little while. And I could see the difference between here, I have to do this, beside in Egypt. Everything there, you do your work, there's a church in the evening, there's a church service, there's something to do there. But here it's different. I have to do all of this because nobody else is going to do it for me. So the lifestyle is different, and people are brought up in Egypt in the way that you don't have a lot. I'm sorry to say, but you don't have a life outside church. All what you do is just here.
And we're going to do 1, 2, 3 to wrap up. Just give time.
I think the issue is not about being in Egypt or in Canada. We are a minority. Here we are a minority. In Egypt we are a minority. Like no matter where you are, if you're born here, at the end of the day you say, where are you from? You look different, right? So we are a minority. And as any minority do, like the Tamils in Sri Lanka or the Ismaili communities in Pakistan, are no different. Meaning that because we are a minority, we have to make sure that we strive and work hard to different ourselves from the crowd. So you see the professionals, the Tamils are doing very well, by the way. The Ismaili community are doing very well, very, very well. And they are the same kind of size as far as population of the country. So, and this is where they become attachment to their God, whether they are Muslims or Hindus or Christians. As a minority, you look up for a God, to rely on God, and at the same time, you work like hard to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So no matter where you are in Egypt or in Canada, you're raised with this mentality. You're raised with this background. It's not about the lifestyle. No matter how you live in this country, how long do you live in this country, you are still a minority. Why? Because you're different. You are celebrating Christmas on January the 7th, right? You celebrate Easter on a different day, or whatever. You are still part of the minority group, even if you are born in this country. So it's the perception, right? So at the end of the day, it's not how you get attached to God. It's at the end of the day, is how you were raised and the culture you're raised in that makes you do whatever you want, here or there. So the difference is not the boundaries or the countries. The difference is in you.
Yeah, so I was just gonna touch upon like your third point about being in denial and our nature of trying to compare all the time. So as soon as we spoke about advantages, disadvantages, obviously we had very, very different perspectives just because based on who you talk to in Europe, for example, or who you know in Egypt, or who your family is, or all of that, you're gonna get a very completely different perspective. So I think the importance is for us to recognize what our advantages are, our unique advantages, our unique disadvantages.
Yes.
Each one of us, even if we went to the same school, we have the same job, we work for the same company, whatever it is, we still have our very own unique advantages, disadvantages. We're shaped our whole lives based on how we grew up, who our family is, which church we went to, if we lived here and there. Like all of these things shaped us in a very unique way, which is the way God created us to be very unique. So once we recognize that, what my advantages are, what my disadvantages are, then I try to align that with God's plan for me, and that's how we get there. And then if we want to help others, then we ought to try to understand from their perspective what their advantages and what their disadvantages are. We're never going to understand, we're never going to be in their shoes because we didn't live that, that life. So when someone talks to me in Egypt and sure their rent is 9 a month, right? To me it's like, that sounds like a joke. Your life must be so easy, right? But the way he's looking at it, and he's like, okay, well, my whole salary every month is £2,000, and I have to spend like a liter of gas is like £9 right now. So from their perspective, it's a very completely different life as well, where they're barely they could be barely making ends meet with what they're getting paid. So we're never going to understand exactly what how they feel about it, but we have to know that they have their very own unique advantages and disadvantages, just like we do.
Yeah,
uncle actually said that. I'm just gonna build on that because that's gonna be part of my point anyways. That we really have to stop doing that comparison between Egypt and here, us and other people. Um, they have a very difficult life there in some cases. I went there I went there like about a few months ago and I saw my cousins who just got married and my uncle, my aunt's husband who has been working all his life. He still had to work 12 hours a day. You know, and he's a pharmacist. He made money, but he still had to work 12 hours a day. So there's, you know, life is still very, very hard for everyone, and we can't say they have it easier or not, like it's just like you're saying. And at the very end of the day, we have to stop using excuses. Oh, well, you know what? Oh, my life is hard here. I don't have time. You know, it's busyness. Because when you stand in front of God on Judgment Day, that's what the Bible says. You're gonna, you know, He's gonna ask you, why didn't you pray? I'm busy. You know what the Bible says? You human are without excuse. He told me, you know what? I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. I had commitments to my family. You human are without excuse. You're gonna tell him again, God, I'm sorry. You know what? Work was busy. They told me they gave me this project. You know, something happened. You know, my girlfriend broke up with me. My whatever boyfriend, whatever, maraf shea, all this nonsense. You know what God's gonna tell you? You human are without excuse. Ignorance is also not an excuse in front of God. You don't go to church and you're gonna claim to God, oh, I'm ignorant. I didn't know. That's not an excuse either.
So, yes, thank you. Good, happy last message.
Well, I wanted to kind of stay in the tone that you wanted talking about, right?
Yeah, and John, God is here, God is there. The devil is here, the devil is everywhere. At the end of the day, you take this and you put it into your personal life, and it hits everybody differently. Not one person can read that and have the same answers, right? But the idea is again that there is no finish line. We are constantly working on our spiritual success, right? So from a Christian perspective, is I'm going to continue to work no matter what my, lot in life is. I'm always striving to do better, and there's never a time where I'm done, knowing that as long as I'm trying, God will help, and God will carry the rest of the way. That's the message, right?
I think
I'm really sorry, guys.
No, it's perfect.
I apologize. Thank you.